Ever get curious about what's happening in your dog's tummy while they're gobbling down dinner?
Besides the obvious yearning for more treats.
Exactly. But seriously, today we're diving into a world that's surprisingly fascinating. We're talking about the pancreas and specifically pancreatic ducts in different mammals.
It's not usually a dinner table conversation,
Mhm.
right?
But stick with us because this deep dive into your research is going to be way more interesting than you might expect.
It's pretty cool stuff. What makes pancreatic ducts so fascinating is that, well, one size doesn't fit all in the animal kingdom.
So we're not just talking about the same system on repeat in every animal then.
Definitely not. While humans and a lot of mammals have a single duct system in their pancreas, some species have evolved separate ducts.
Huh. It's like evolution decided to mix things up a bit.
Yes.
So why should we even care about these pancreatic plumbing variations?
Well, for starters, it's not just an anatomy lesson. Understanding these variations is super important for things like veterinary medicine, research on diseases, even for understanding how digestion evolved over millions of years.
It's like connecting the dots between these tiny anatomical differences and the animal's health and how they fit into the bigger picture of evolution.
You got it.
So anyone listening who's interested in biology, maybe prepping for an exam or writing a paper, or even if you're just really curious about how animals work, this deep dive is for you.
By the end, you'll be able to impress your friends with all your pancreas knowledge.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Imagine a single pancreatic duct. It acts like the main pipeline, merging with another duct, the bile duct, which comes from the liver. And then they both enter the small intestine. Pretty straightforward, right?
Makes sense.
But some animals decided to go a different route. Like rats, our little lab buddies. They actually have two separate ducts that drain directly into the intestine.
Two ducks, just like that.
Now, before anyone pictures a scientist chasing rats around a lab, it's actually these separate ducts that make them so valuable for research.
You could say they're the supermodels of the pancreas world.
Huh. And why is that?
Their separate ducts let scientists study different pancreatic functions separately. Like, they can see how a drug that affects enzyme production, just as an example, how it affects one duct compared to the other.
So it gives a much clearer picture of what that drug is actually doing.
Precisely. And get this. By being able to study the different parts of the pancreas separately, researchers discovered a whole new type of cell in rats that helps regulate insulin production. That's a big deal.
Wow. So even though our anatomy isn't identical to a rat's, by studying them, we can still learn a lot about our own pancreas and how to maybe treat diseases.
Exactly. It's all about recognizing patterns and using them to figure out the bigger, more complex puzzles.
That makes sense. So rats aren't alone in having this two-duct system. What other animals are in this exclusive separate ducts club?
Well, dogs, for one, they also have two pancreatic ducts. Think of a dog standing on all fours. One duct, the dorsal duct, is closer to their back, and the other, the ventral duct, is closer to their belly.
Okay, I'm picturing it. So two ducts. Are they both equally important?
Not quite. In dogs, the ventral duct is the main one, while the dorsal duct plays a smaller role.
Interesting. What about cats? I always found them to be a bit more mysterious.
Cats are interesting because they usually lose that dorsal duct pretty early on in their development, so they rely solely on the ventral duct. It's like they streamlined their system for their carnivorous diet. Makes you wonder.
Fascinating. Different animals, different ducts, different ways of digesting food. It's all connected. What about horses? They're big grazing animals. I imagine their systems are pretty different again.
You're right, horses are unique. They actually keep both ducts, like dogs, but the ventral duct takes center stage maybe to help them digest all that fiber they eat compared to, say, cats.
It's amazing how these small differences can have such a big impact. But let's bring it all back. Why does all this matter in the real world?
Well, first off, knowing these variations in pancreatic anatomy is absolutely crucial for veterinarians. To accurately diagnose and treat pancreatic problems in animals, they have to know the specific duct structure of that species.
Right, because you wouldn't use a wrench when you need a screwdriver.
Exactly. And remember how we talked about rats being so valuable for research? Well, by understanding these variations in other animals, researchers can choose the best model for studying a disease and developing new treatments. And that benefits everyone, even humans.
It's like each animal, with its unique pancreas setup, provides a piece of the puzzle.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. Who knew pancreatic ducts could be so interesting? I feel like I could talk about this all day, but we're running out of time.
There's always more to learn.
Exactly. We've seen how much the structure of these ducts can vary, But what does it all mean? Like, how do those subtle differences play into each animal's diet and how they digest food?
It's a good question, and there's still so much we don't know.
That's your cue to go and do some more research. Explore. Let your curiosity run wild. This is just the beginning.